Record to this. Hello, Ernest. Feels like a long
Hello.
time. Can you hear me? Testing one, two, three. Testing one, two, three.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Ah, you look like you've been moving. I don't know, or we're just in your storage room for a change.
Mm-hmm. So having a mess here.
I know we've been bouncing around with the time. Hopefully that didn't mess with Tom too much. Ah, on to more cheerful things. How's the war in Ukraine looking to you these days?
Um, I haven't been following much, but I keep hearing that Ukraine is doing well, bombing. What was it? St.
St. Petersburg.
Petersburg,
Yeah,
where Putin had his big conference.
yeah, the Russian Davos. And the interesting, we I think I'm sticking with correlation as causation. The Iranian drone production people met with Tom or talked to him a year or so ago, and
The
now,
Iranian or Ukrainian?
sorry, Ukrainian, sorry, that to poor Tom. The Ukrainian drone production people met with Tom a year or so ago, and since then, their industry has just seemed to be crushing the Russian drones in terms of the big news, as I understand it, is that uh, there's the short range drones, which give them battlefield superiority. And then there's the long range drones, which do these economic infrastructure strikes like they did in St. Petersburg. But the really lethal thing is these medium range drones, about 150, 200 kilometers, that allow them to destroy A, Russian supply depots, and B, the supply chains between Russia and Crimea. So there's a massive fuel shortage in the Crimean Peninsula
Yeah,
where the militaries are having to ration civilian gasoline because between the supply shortages, between the ports being hit, but, the supply depots in Crimea being hit, and all the rail bridge being unusable over the Kerch, and the trucks being targeted in. Okay, yes, Tom, we were just crediting you for the Ukrainian drone advances, which are just wreaking havoc on Russia's economy and supply lines.
Right. Good. I'll take all the credit for the drones in Ukraine. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. Good
that
job.
is good. Anything new on your side you wanted to talk about, Tom? Any other countries you're rearming for the third millennium?
Yeah, but I'd have to shoot you if I told you.
Yeah.
Too far
Speaking of
away.
which, I did embargo last month's video because you mentioned that was still some sensitive and process stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, should
We're
we
getting
should should
less.
we should we avoid talking about it this one so that we can publish it, or is there anything you are comfortable saying publicly?
Um, we're in the middle of things happening there. Kai's made a website that declares what we want to declare, which I can send you guys. But he's very sensitive about it. By the way, we entered patent pending yesterday, so that's a fact. And then Kai has just released a website today with what he wants to release, and he's told me off for telling my friends a little bit too much. So I think the best thing is to not talk about it. Full stop.
Okay.
We can look at the apps I'm working on. That's not part of the secret, as it were. Hmm. And
All
I'm
right.
doing things. By the way, there's a Silicon Valley book out, which you probably are aware of, called by Eric Ries, called Uncorruptible.
Incorruptible.
Incorruptible.
Yes, I've been following that. Ernest, you should look at it. Maybe worth pulling up and spending a few minutes on because this is his basic premise is that. Well, I'll pull up the screen and you can see from yourself what he's saying. But the way I would summarize his premise is
Can you
that
carry it up for me? I can't do it. Okay, this one I'm moving office because I'm in the living room and my family's here, so and they don't want to hear me talking. But move up to my office at the cabin.
Okay.
Let's see.
Giving me the product hunt page, which is kind of low information. Let's give the actual, first of all, we can find a better page on what he is doing it.
Fuck. Yes, Lord.
Boy, it's really hard to find a good definitive link on this, but we'll go with this one. Okay, sorry about that. So his basic premise is that the culture of capitalism is destructive to shareholder value because it encourages people to follow their baser motives rather than making enlightened long-term decisions that help their companies live out their values and serve customers in a way that creates durable value. And this is just a failure of culture and systems that if we actually paid attention to this and put the systems in place to reinforce our best behavior, would address, at least a big chunk of the ills of, I guess the technical term is enshittification. This failure is not primarily ethical, it is structural. That's the punchline here. Have you seen this at all or heard about this at all, Ernest?
No.
Was that okay? It's I think it's a great book. I'm only on chapter 4, but I've actually built an app called Incorruptible, which checks any plan, whether it's in accordance with Eric Ries's basic principles. So I built it a couple days ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm actually it knew enough about Eric and his long-term stock exchange, another keyword, to help know the rules that I hadn't even read, and in my Kindle book, I couldn't just feed the Kindle book to my AI and say follow all the rules. So I'm actually looking around for a bootleg copy in PDF of it, so I can instruct my Incorruptible tool even better. Maybe I could just email Eric and ask for a copy in exchange for him knowing about the app. I don't know. I can demo the app too.
Tom, do you mean to show us your ceiling in oh, there. Yeah.
Actually, what's going on here is I just installed the new iPhone Air just now. It just finished, and so I was on that, and then I'm going to go get back on my Mac, but so I'll probably yeah. So I was just laying it down. Actually, the view out there from my office through the fence is the Oslo Fjord, and there's a sailing regatta with literally 1,000 sailboats going past this evening. But that's what we're all watching now. I'm going to come in on my Mac.
What was the joke that Helen of Troy was the face that launched 1,000 ships? So the amount of the amount of beauty required to launch a single ship is a millihelen.
Okay, good. Let's see. Did I get into Zoom or not?
You're here. We see you. You don't have switching?
I'm switching to Mac. That's what I'm doing. And it didn't work first time around for whatever reason.
Yeah, the transfer function usually works, but not always, which is annoying.
Yeah. Well, just there. Have you looked at the Apple iPhone Air?
I have not. I try not to look at Apple products too often, or I'll end up buying them.
I know. So, and then I also ordered a new MacBook Air, but I had such high feature spec on it that it's going to take 4 weeks before it arrives. They didn't have it in
Yeah,
stock in
yeah,
Norway.
the memory shortage constraint challenges are interesting. There's a whole
But
thing around
we,
that,
we
but
yeah, we have an old neighbor a boy who was friends with my boys, and he's director at Apple in Norway. So we're getting good discounts by ordering through our Apple childhood friend. Waiting for hosts to start the meeting. Do I have the wrong thing here? Is that the? Excuse me.
I message it to you so you can find it.
No, I had the right one in here. This it's just a matter of. There we go. Join. I think I had two different ones here
Mhm.
for whatever
Ernest,
historical
before
reason.
I had something fairly large I wanted to discuss, but I wanted to give you some space if you had anything you was on your mind, either that you're wrestling with or that you wanted to pitch us on.
There's the new ultra thin.
You got audio on both. Please disconnect audio from one of them.
Yeah, I'll disconnect audio from one of them. No, let's see. The audio is from my earphones. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, here, just turn off the darn phone. Turn off
It's still on. It's not
yeah.
disconnected. So mute
I'm
both and then like log out of one, please.
yeah, I'm trying.
Okay, there we are. Good. I don't want to say we had too much Tom because there's no such thing as too much Tom, but having two of you at one time is definitely pushing the limits. Right. Now, can we hear you at all? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Oh, you sound so much calmer.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to show
Ernest.
you
Oh, yeah,
this
show us.
nice
Go ahead.
place. You guys are Apple guys.
Ex-Apple,
Anyway,
but yes, still part of the
and
Omerta.
thin and small and light and expensive. Anyway,
Isn't it? Yeah. Ernest, anything on your mind that you would like to get off your chest before we dive into the next topic?
no, again, I've made the app for Incorruptible, and when it's time, anytime, I'll demo it if you want it, and you can know it's there. That's all.
I was actually asking Ernest. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm just catching up. Catching up here.
Audio lag.
Yeah.
What's so many things. Can I narrow it down to one thing? Um, uh, I've been watching several videos with Ed Citron. I think I shared one with you guys. He talks about the AI ecosystem and uh, shenanigans, um, with the circular economy and he mentions in one of them he mentions that all these data centers, the AI data set, essentially the bubble is kind of almost here, but the three signs that it's imminent is when a data center company says, "Oh, this data center that we were going to build, we're not going to build it anymore," or this one that we've building, oh, we have to stop building, or this one that is working, we have to close. When those three things happen, that's when you know that the AI bubble is upon us. And he has some very interesting thoughts about the token economy, that people, and this statistic I think is very interesting. Like the people who pay $20 a month for AI are actually using $15,000, and we're just going through well, no, we're ending the Uber like period, where Uber rides were really, really cheap, but then they came up, once they got the whole, people addicted, they raised the prices. And the same thing is happening with your clothes and
Yeah.
those where
Yeah. Yeah. We're already seeing that where consumer AI usage is basically a non-viable business. And so the thesis is, I mean, enterprise value is like we literally get, 2x to 5x speed improvements with engineers who use AI. I'm sorry, we get a 10x improvement, of which we lose 2 to 3x from having to do the rework, but we're still ahead over hiring another engineer. So it's just the way the world is on the business level. On the consumer side, the thesis is that the only ways to make money on AI is either advertising or hardware. Sorry, the only way to make money from consumers, period, is advertising or hardware, because consumers basically never want to spend money on software and certainly on subscriptions. And so, yeah, that consumer AI software services bubble looks like it's disappearing, which means that hardware is becoming really more interesting, as seen by Apple's lead times. So,
yeah.
did you watch
And
WWDC at all, by the way?
no, I watched a summary by Marquez Brownlee, um, and uh, yeah, no, I didn't watch it. I'm not a Tim Cook um, person.
So Tim Cook's like almost gone, right? Who's the
I
next
Yeah,
guy? Johnny,
this is his
Johnny
last.
Cerruti? Am I getting
I
the
don't
names mixed
know,
up?
some dude. Um,
He is a
but
hardware dude. We'll give him that. That seems like, I think that was the take, is that Apple is not going to try and play the hardware AI game. Will be like the Levi's jeans, sell
yeah,
the
yeah,
clothing to whoever's
essentially
going to buy it.
wrapping Siri around Gemini. Um, yeah, yeah, that. Oh, you guys know that kind of doesn't interest me at all. I have a pre AI, pre Apple Intelligence phone that I'm not planning to upgrade because yeah, the all that. Yeah, I'm like I'm a very anti-AI person. So, on the other side, uh, I mean, really, really on the other side, on the financial side, with the SpaceX IPO, um, I haven't really delved into it, but it is really interesting how they kind of are changing all the rules when it comes to lockup periods and who, the index funds or yeah, the indexes, like Nasdaq, that, whereas in the past or normally you have, a company will have to like be in business for like at least 3 months before the big funds would have to buy it, depending on performance. With SpaceX, it'll be just 2 weeks. I don't know how they changed the rules for SpaceX, maybe because of the size. I don't know, but essentially, funds like Cowper, any big fund that tracks the indexes will have to buy SpaceX within 2 weeks. And
So they've been added to the S&P 500.
I think yeah, that's one of
Yeah.
the.
So this is probably the first time that a company has IPO'd with a value that materially distorts the S&P 500.
Yes.
right? I mean, it is a unprecedented event on so many. I'm actually curious because last I checked, you were not a big fan of Elon Musk, but you were a very big fan of space. And I'm curious emotionally how you're dealing with SpaceX.
Uh, well, I'm a fan of space, but I'm not a fan of Elon Musk's space because, I don't know. Well, we were supposed to be in Mars by now. All his businesses, his is like him selling a future that is fiction. You know, the the
How about Starlink? How do you feel about Starlink?
uh, well, it's a good technology. It's kind of polluting low Earth orbit, but what for the people who need it, let's say, Ukrainian soldiers, the Ukrainian military, well, the Russian military, for
Um,
period, until
yeah.
he said no more. So for people who are, you know, living the Goonies and there's no other way to get internet, I think is okay, yeah, right? I mean, would I get it? I With my values in that, let's say I move to the desert and uh, would I would do my damnedest not to get it. I would do something else. It would be like that. So yeah, when it comes to space, um, the way that he did the manufacturing of the his rockets, and yeah, and it's still kind of fiction, the reusage of the rockets, right? Especially this last one. I don't know if the last,
The Starship that exploded.
yeah. So maybe he's still in that period of, let's find all the limits, and
He does tend to blow up a lot of things before he succeeds.
yeah. Um, but eh, I dislike that. Yes, and autopilot is the main example that um, you know, people die with that thing active, and it's like, well, it happens. It's like, he doesn't want to use the lighter stuff
Mhm.
to make the cars kind of safer, right? Because you're going strictly by vision on a computer. Obviously, it's not
Well,
perfect because
let's be more precise on the trade-off. You could make a car that costs twice as much that half as many people used with lidar, and the claim and is that AI driving is not perfect and all this sort of stuff, and the vision space stuff is even less perfect than the lidar stuff. On the other hand, it's actually better. It's already better than many human drivers much of the time. I'm
uh,
curious.
hmm.
So we can debate that is in a world where an AI driving car demonstrably kills less people than the average car driven by a human, but it still kills people. Uh, would you still prefer to ban that?
uh, well, I wouldn't ban it, but
Okay.
it should be more responsible when it comes to, like, uh, um, research, admitting that, yes, this car, like there was a recent death. This car had autopilot on,
Hmm.
and I don't know what the driver was doing, but
Hmm.
at some point the car veered into some wall, no, into a kind of post, and fell into the water. The passenger got survived, but the driver didn't. But why did the car veer into the, why did that happen? What were the inputs? All this research should be in the open. Like, yes, it failed, and we're investigating. He should be ahead of it. But no, it's, he, uh,
Stonewalling.
yeah, and putting, uh, like, not putting his face like, okay, he talks about the future and now, yeah, it's wonderful, but hey, there's drawbacks, and this is one of them, and we're admitting it, and we're investigating, and we're disclosed what happened, something like that. I guess that I
Greater
don't know.
transparency and accountability is
Yeah,
really what you're asking for. Not slowing progress, but just making sure people are mindful of the costs and not avoiding them.
yeah, not just flaunting the flowers, but also the thorns. Like it should be kind of like equal. No, it should be equal. Maybe it should be even more flaunt. Getting down into the why did this thorn, bite? That should be the priority, in my opinion.
So
Uh,
I want to use that as the episode title, by the way, not flaunting the flowers, but the thorns. That is such a great phrase.
okay, yeah. So yeah, the whole Musk thing is about his personal the values that I see he displaying. I
Yeah.
don't I don't and especially I talked about it before, like him uh, programming Grok to say that he's Krog McGraw, whatever, martial arts expert, super video game player, and the physique of some sort of athlete, when we know that that's not the correct
I
physique.
still
Like,
want to see the Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg smackdown. I'm not quite sure why that hasn't happened yet.
yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Anyway,
the stuff in
thank
my
you,
mind.
Ernest. All
Mhm.
right. So we'll do maybe a soft shift to what I've been working on. So this is still slightly embargoed, but nobody really cares. So I'll just go and share this. Is I entered a book review contest for Slate Star Codex or Astral Codex 10, I think it is on Substack. Scott Alexander's rationalist blog, which I don't know if we've talked about rationalism before, but it's closest thing that Silicon Valley has to a secular religion is rationalism. It's a small percentage of the population, but they're very organized and vocal and visible and influential. They were deeply involved in both the boardroom coup that happened at OpenAI and Sam Bankman-Fried and that whole scandal. So um, they're also known for the YIMBY movement. You've heard of NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Mhm.
So YIMBY is the pro-development, like, hey, let's build more housing, even if it reduces our property values, so that we can get homeless people off the streets. And so they have this same ecological niche that Christians used to have in Middle America. Maybe they still do. Of they're a little weird, and I don't like all the things that they believe in, but they do a lot of good work, and I kind of feel forced to admire them retroactively. Like a lot of them give 10% of their income to uh, to reducing global poverty by like buying malaria nets or funding experimental researches and things like this. So it's a really interesting subculture. Anyway, he runs a book review contest, and this year I decided to enter it. It's all anonymous in that you're not supposed to know who wrote which essays because of you don't want personal fame to impact your evaluating the quality of the essay, but nobody there knows who I am or cares or is likely to see this, so it's not going to influence anybody's votes. I think the voting period may even be over. I don't know if I've been accepted as a finalist or not. But the punchline is I've come up with a theory of consciousness. It's based on a book by Antonio Damasio, which we may have discussed in the past. And I had some vague thoughts that got hammered out in the course of think from Saturday morning to Wednesday night when I submitted it just like 17 minutes before the deadline. Uh, and what's interesting is that it actually is a reinterpretation of Datocracy, which is what makes it interesting here. And when we first met, Tom, way back, you were talking about your book about Datocracy. And the idea was that people would like fill out a survey or answer questions or vote directly on policies so that we could get away from one random human being making decisions for everybody else. And the fascinating thing that emerged when I was writing this essay was two things. First, let me go over Damasio's theory of consciousness. So Antonio Damasio is a legitimate neurological researcher, University of Southern California, I think. And he has a very simple, straightforward explanation of consciousness, which I've never seen. I've always heard all these bizarre theories, but no one actually grounding it in actual neurobiology. And his first point is that, well, let's start with like a cell. What it means to be alive is that you're in dynamic equilibrium with your environment, is you need to engage with the environment in a way that keeps you alive so you can reproduce. If you don't do that, you're not alive, you're dead. And so all living systems have this property, which we can loosely call homeostasis, that I have to respond to my environment. So if I've got too much, if there's a food source nearby, the chemicals from that need to penetrate the cell membrane, generate the right RNA behavior so that I move towards the food and eat it. And if there's an acid, I need to detect that and move away from it. And systems that do not sense opportunities and threats and respond to them die. So that's the basic feature of what it means to be alive, is to have sensations about things that affect your ability to survive, one way or the other. Does that definition make sense to people? Sensing is how a living system responds to threats and opportunities in the environment and then responds to it. The second thing is that, okay, that's for simple systems, bacteria, amoeba, plants, that are, I guess, technical term is, when you get to animals, things get interesting in that you have to coordinate multiple systems in order to move. Like if you just thrash around wildly, you don't move very far and you probably injure yourself. You want to be able to say, oh, there's food over here, we should move towards it. Oh, there's a predator over there, we should move away from it. And so the idea of a mind is that instead of just randomly responding to chemical signals, we integrate those signals into digital neuron signals. So we create these, he calls them images, I call them patterns, is that those sensations that all living things have get encoded as signals into neurons that feed into a central processing unit, the mind. That's the second point, is that you have, so it goes from sensing to minding. That's sensing is a property of all life, minding is a property of all animals. But this is the thing he says that's remarkable, is that those patterns are not just raw information. They have affect, they have valence, they have a sense of this is good or this is bad. I should move toward it, move away from it. I should be open to this experience, I should avoid this experience. And that nuance is what he calls feeling. A feeling is a mind that knows that certain things are good or bad, and can and interprets them in that context. Just the same way that, in the sense of like, relative to my homeostasis, is this something that is increasing my ability to self-perpetuate myself, so I should move toward it, or it's threatening my ability to self-perpetuate, so I should move away from it?
So beneficial and not beneficial.
Yeah, beneficial versus harmful, I guess. Right, is that because it has a sense of self from sensing, that therefore, when we have a mind, the mind responds to that by assigning feelings to it. And he goes, so all animals have, minds that feel, as opposed to just raw sensation. And then he says, okay, so when I say consciousness, so he defines consciousness as the sensation that I have feelings that belong to me. And the idea is, this is actually kind of a profound insight, I think, is that we all have many sensations. But sometimes I will say the stove is hot, and I will say that the sun is hot, or the air is hot, or these towels are hot. Or sometimes I'll say I am hot. That hot is a property of my internal state, what he calls interoception, versus external state, which is perception. And simple creatures don't distinguish between the two. They don't have plants don't have a clear sense of internal versus external. They don't even have a mind, and maybe even sponges don't. But at some point, when you have a body and you have a brain, the brain segments information as like, okay, this information about the outside world, and this is information about my internal world, and information about my internal world is something that belongs to me, and that's what it means to have a feeling about yourself. So to him, consciousness is knowing that some sensations belong to me because those are feelings in my mind. And so let me just stop there. I call that the sensing, minding, feeling, knowing model of consciousness. Did you follow any of that? Is that just painfully obvious? Is that bizarre? You're muted, Tom. On purpose, I guess.
Oh, he's not
Yeah,
talking.
yeah. I was just asking my son to bring a power cable up to me, so I didn't run out of power. I didn't.
You're totally talking about. Anyway, did that model, does that seem like obvious to people? Does that make sense? Is that radical?
It's I don't know if the word is interesting or obvious or natural. Um, uh, so does an
It feels plausible.
does it does an ant have a conscious
Oh,
a
so okay, this is
consciousness?
good. This is good. This is the distinction that he talks about. So at a fruit, he calls this core consciousness. Like an ant will respond to stimuli that propagates through its mind, that makes it, scurry away from certain things and follow certain other things. Right? It'll say, like, I'm going to follow this pheromone trail. Um, what it does lack is sort of self-consciousness. It doesn't know that it has a self. And he called that autobiographical consciousness or extended consciousness. And that's something that's limited to, like, probably, humans, maybe some higher primates, dolphins, dogs, creatures like that, that don't just have awareness of their own body and their environment as distinct things, but have awareness of themselves as a self. So
And
that's where he draws the line.
does that uh does having a personality kind of exemplifies that self? Like different dogs, cats, they have personalities, right? So they have different uh
References,
no personalities. Two cats from the same mom,
litter, or whatever.
the same leader. Well, they're different. They're not clones.
Right.
From the same stimuli, they may behave differently. One might be happier, the other one might be quieter. Dogs the same.
Yeah.
So does having a
So,
personality mean that you have? Well, I guess you do have consciousness, but
right.
anyway.
So what's interesting is that, as far as I can tell, and is that, core consciousness, like in theory, even a worm has some consciousness. It has a body. It has, or maybe not a round worm, but at least like a nematode will have some sense of ability to navigate. What appears to be the trigger for autobiographical consciousness is actually socialization. And that gets to things the idea of personality, is that how do I interact with others is a big part of what we mean by personality. And that gets into theory of mind. What does it mean to have a mind, to have a sense of your own mind and other people's minds? So that appears to be tied to autobiographical consciousness. And I think that's at least a large part of what we mean by personality. Now, otters have some amount of curiosity, and raccoons have some amount of curiosity, and like some raccoons are fearful and some raccoons are courageous. I don't know if that's what you would mean by personality so much. That kind of personality is maybe a feature function of core consciousness, but relational personality, how we engage with others, is, I think, arguably a feature of extended consciousness.
Mm. Okay.
All right. So there's a bunch of different things that came out of this. There's a whole section on AI, which is of great interest to the Astral Codex 10 community, but less so for here. Here's the really interesting insight that came out of this for me, is that this sense of feeling and minding means that if I am part of a system, when I hurt my foot, if I'm not a leper or drugged out, I hurt. I don't say, oh, there's pain over there. It's like, no, that hurt me. And what's interesting is that the way I describe it is that when I'm conscious of something as part of me, either I have to expend energy to address that pain, or I have to expend energy to ignore that pain, right? If I see, a dead bird on the side of the road, that, or even uh, um, a dead cow, that doesn't cause me any affective pain. If it was a dead dog or my dead dog, that would cause me great affective pain, right? It is things that my brain sort of intuitively accepts as part of me that determines whether I feel that pain. And
your dog, is that what you mean by part of me? Like the dog
is that my brain, is for a social creature, and the canonical example is mother and child, right? To be a mammal is when you were a child and you cried, if your parents didn't feel that pain and get up and feed you, you would have died, right? And this is the idea, is to be conscious of something, is to say that its pain counts as something I must deal with. That's the idea of consciousness. And this is the answer to the riddle, why does consciousness feel like something? And the idea is that we have different subsystems, right? We have our heart, our lungs, our guts, our muscles, our skin, and our minds are where we integrate all of those things to say, like, okay, I really want to sleep, but I also really want to eat. And if I don't get up and do some work, I'm not going to get the money to eat. And so the brain is where we fight out all those different impulses and desires and find an equilibrium where we can move forward in some fashion. And like you guys showing up for this call every month is an extraordinary thing that we've been able to build this rhythm for over these years. And I appreciate that somehow all your different equilibrium have stabilized on this place where you guys show up for this. But that involves making trade-offs between different things that aren't directly comparable. And the only way we compare them is sort of what it costs us to do that, how much emotional energy, mental energy we're willing to expend on something. And the idea is this is what it means to be a mind, is that you feel the cost of different options and you make a choice to choose one over the other. And you compare essentially the psychic cost of those different options in a way that you can't directly compare money and time and pain and relationships. You indirectly compare them based on how much consciousness it costs you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the punchline, which is very radical. What I think Datocracy is about is actually creating global consciousness in this very narrow technical sense, that we're trying to build a system that holds the disequilibrium, the effect, the pain, if you will, of all the different systems, and that it pays the price to either consciously ignore it or to modify the rest of the system to address it. And this gets directly to your point about Elon Musk. Like the feeling, and I think this is true, and frankly, it's true of a lot of entrepreneurs, is they are able to focus on doing one thing incredibly well by refusing to feel the pain of all the other things they're not doing. I mean, Steve Jobs was notorious for this as well, hopefully in a slightly more, constructive way. But it's still true that all of us make choices. We're going to do this and not do that. And this idea, I can send you a link to the essay I wrote about this, which is that the goal of a datocratic, healthy, responsive, moral, whatever term you want to use, civilization is not that there are no problems. It's not that nothing ever goes wrong. It means that we're continually getting better at not dumping our pain on the weak and the vulnerable and the excluded. It's saying like, no, this matters, and I am committed to increasing my consciousness of you, of them, of the other, and finding a better way to move forward that doesn't just exclude, destroy, and demean. And that's what I think. And the thing that was a shock to me as I was working through this is not primarily about what information you use to make a rational decision. It's precisely about what tensions do you hold to make an inclusive decision. And that is something that I think is implicit in language, but not explicit. And I think, at least the way that I emotionally experience that, is I've never been able to reconcile those two with language. Of where do I hold attention that I can't yet reduce to a number or a word?
Hmm. Hmm. Waiting for Tom
I
to.
put a little query in the chat, Ernest.
Swell creatures do not have self-consciousness. So the short answer is theory of mind. The theory of mind is a robust empirical thing that you can test, and you can detect when it happens in babies, and you can measure it in certain primates, which is that I see something, I know that I see something, and then you can test, like with a baby will see something, and they can, there's a certain stage where if they see something, they assume that everyone else can see it. But then after a certain point, you can say, oh, I see this, you don't. I mean, this is the whole Dora and Blue's Clues phenomena, is they start to like, oh yeah, I know something you don't. And I can imagine something that you don't have. And at least that definition of having a theory of self, theory of mind, my mind is not the same as your mind, is that level of self-consciousness definition we can measure. There's also some neural correlates of that in terms of the brain loops you need to be able to be aware. I mean, the way I think about it is I have, for minimal consciousness, I need a world model, some sense of the outside world. I need a body model, which is a sense of that I have these things that I can move that are experiencing sensations, and a self model that I interpret these sensations as responding to applying to myself rather than to the world. The body as the mediation or the dividing line between the two. Technically, perception, proprioception, which is the sense of your own body, and interoception. And so then extended consciousness implies that I then have a recursive model that can see that I have a self model, as opposed to just executing the self model. I can step back and look at the self model and say like, oh, it's not just that I feel hunger. I can say, well, I am hungry. I can reason about the fact that I am feeling this hunger. And so and he sometimes uses the term, actually, at one point in his book, it's really the same consciousness. It's just more mental machinery for reflecting on it. It's not really a different type of consciousness. It's just a different subject matter, or it's about more. So it's, I don't know if that's over answering your question, Tom, but now I'm feeling self-conscious.
I didn't feel I got an answer.
So if you define self-consciousness as theory of mind, then you can measure that.
Yeah, I wasn't asking for measurement as such.
Okay.
You made the assertion that there's a certain class of creatures that do not have self-consciousness, and I'm sort of wondering, has anybody validated that they do or do not by some experiments?
Right. Well, so I say you can, if we define self-conscious, so core consciousness, more or less all animals do. There's some edge cases, but any animal with a brain that is capable of responding to stimuli counts as conscious. Self-conscious implies, or he calls it some autobiographical consciousness, in the sense that they can reflect on their past actions and use that as information to decide to do something differently in the future. And so that does require some mental machinery that an ant does not have. So there are some brain systems. He's a neurobiologist. So he has a whole list of all the different brain systems that are solved in these things, and you can map those onto it. But a lot of it depends on how you define self-consciousness. So given a certain definition, you can make a clear statement. Otherwise, it's kind of wishy-washy.
Okay, we'll live with that.
What's interesting is that when we think about Datocracy, is you can imagine a system or a community where the elders are sort of, and this is probably how a lot, they live in both modes, right? There's a sense where we're fluent in what everyone else is thinking and doing, and there's a sense where we reflectively understand what's going on. And traditional cultures really emphasized fluency a lot, right? Just do the done thing. Just do what the group is doing. Western modern cultures very much imply understanding. Well, the unexamined life is not worth living. Think, reflect, analyze, understand. That's what we spend all our time doing on this meeting, trying to analyze and understand stuff. And one of the implications of this is you need both. And they need to be in dialogue. It's what the right and left sides of the brain are supposed to be doing. Is they're supposed to be listening to each other and collaborating, not trying to control one another. And speaking personally, one of my big failure modes is that it's easy to retreat to understanding because I feel powerful and in control. And the easiest way to do that is ignoring emotion and affect of people or systems that I cannot understand. And the interesting implication of this theory is if we want to heal the world, if we want to build these datocratic systems, if we want to make sure the poor and the marginalized are being included rather than excluded, the big challenge is expanding our own capacity for consciousness, which sounds very fuzzy and new age, and there's certainly very fuzzy navel-gazing versions of this. But I mean precisely in the language sense, is internalizing the unspoken pain of stakeholders in a way that we can bring that into our decision-making systems. And that to me is actually what it means to become conscious of more. In fact, the title of my essay is Becoming Conscious of, and not treating consciousness as this sort of literal binary thing, but asking the honest question, what are we conscious of? What are we refusing to be conscious of? Because we need to make this decision. But at least owning that and then trying to find ways to grow our capacity. And that the way we build Datocracy is not by building a brilliant technical system. It's by showing other people that we're including their pain in the tension we're holding and collaborating with them to articulate it in a way that they can participate in, that helps us all grow.
Sounds like Norway to me.
Yeah, and I'm actually curious, how do you feel like Norway is doing on the integrating foreign elements into the shared consciousness?
Better than Sweden. We all agree on that.
And is it doing it better?
Well,
there's two ways to be better. I'm curious which one. One is by excluding more. The other is by assimilating harder.
Right. Well, the consensus in the discussion is that Sweden has been terrible at serious assimilation, like teaching the people who come in Swedish properly. Take a simple example. And Norway has been better at that, but still, not good enough for total assimilation. So,
yeah,
the result is these criminal gangs who run around murdering everybody in Sweden, and we don't really have them here in Norway. If you want to get somebody murdered, you have to bring a Swede in.
Hasn't that always been the case, though? Sorry.
Yeah.
Swedish jokes were very big when I was growing up in Illinois. But the interesting thing about this is seeing this as, and I think this is the even more difficult tension. It's not the old version of assimilation, and probably it's not even there too, which is that this is the dominant culture. You must mimic and mirror the dominant culture and lose your incoming culture. Because the old culture was itself optimized for a certain way that the world worked. And you want to maintain the cohesion of feeling like we're all part of one community, but also adapt. You know, like when the Irish took over the politics in Boston, it was the end of the blue-blooded Bostonian, pilgrim aristocracy, but it led to a much more vibrant and inclusive Boston as a result. And this is the hard part of assimilation and adaptation, is what is the thing you need to hold on to maintain cohesion while still adapting to, but while incorporating the healthy adaptive parts of the new stuff that's coming in.
I almost have a feeling that that leads us back to Eric Ries's Incorruptible.
Yeah, that is great. And maybe that's a good segue. I got a hard stop in 4 minutes. It wouldn't hurt to have a couple minutes break. Is you're working on your app. The book just came out. Let's make that our homework to maybe not, if you read the book, great. If not, read some summaries, watch a podcast or a video or two. And let's talk about that, because there is something about Incorruptible that does feel aligned with where we want to go with Datocracy. How do we create healthier, more inclusive systems that actually embody and promote our highest values rather than sinking to whatever is easy and convenient?
I vote for that.
All right. Sound good, Ernest? Do you want to find, I can take a homework assignment to find a good video, a short intro that we can start with, and then people can do their own research from there. You up for that, Ernest?
Yeah.
All right. Well, gentlemen, this has been a delight, and thank you for the chance to talk about this. Hopefully, by then I'll know whether or not my book report essay got accepted and or published, and we're finishing 3 minutes early. So thank you very much. Thank you to Tom's iPhone Air, and we'll see you in July. Take care.